You ask what hurts more, finding out your fiance is a cheater or realizing your own flesh and blood are cheering him on. I spent years building a perfect sanctuary for our future, but when I uncovered their secret vacation, I decided the best revenge was not screaming. It was a cold signature on a sales contract. While they toasted to my ignorance, I sold the house right out from under them. My name is Harper, and standing in the center of the sprawling living room of my Victorian villa felt less like home ownership and more like standing inside the ribcage of a giant beast I had tamed with my own two hands. The late afternoon sun filtered through the bay windows, casting long, golden rectangles across the white oak floors I had spent 3 months sourcing. It had taken me 5 years of blood, sweat, and savings to restore this place. Every crown molding and every brass fixture was a testament to my grind as a senior architect at Sterling and Stone. This house was my premarital asset, my sanctuary, and the only thing I loved almost as much as the man walking through the front door. Liam walked in, loosening his tie with a performance of exhaustion that I had seen a dozen times before. He was handsome in that effortless, maddening way, but today his expression was painted with a rehearsed sort of guilt. "Harper." "Look, I am so sorry," Liam said, pausing just long enough to let the suspense hang in the air like a bad smell. "I have to go away, like tonight." I felt my smile stiffen. "Go away, Liam. It is our 4-year anniversary on Thursday. We had reservations at the Oakhurst." He walked over, gripping my shoulders with hands that felt warm and reassuring, a stark contrast to the ice forming in my stomach. "I know, babe. I know. It kills me. But the investors for the startup, they agreed to meet. Finally. But they are all in Aspen for a retreat, and they said if I want the funding, I need to be there tomorrow morning." "Aspen," I asked, the word tasting cold. "Who are you going with, just the guys?" he said quickly, kissing my forehead. "Mike and Dave. Boring business stuff. Endless meetings and stale coffee. I will make it up to you, I promise. I will buy you that bracelet you have been eyeing." "The expensive one." I wanted to argue, but I was a supportive partner. That was my role, the understanding fiancé of the budding entrepreneur. So, I swallowed my disappointment and nodded. "Okay, go pack. I will help you." We went upstairs to the master suite. While Liam frantically threw toiletries into his leather dop kit, I folded his clothes. I reached for a stack of sweaters on the top shelf and pulled out a soft, sky blue cashmere pullover. I paused, the fabric feeling heavy in my hands. "You are taking this?" I asked, holding it up. Liam glanced over his shoulder, buttoning a fresh shirt. "Yeah. Why Bella gave this to you last Christmas," I said, smoothing a wrinkle on the sleeve. "I remember you told me it looked juvenile." "You said the color washed you out and made you look like a college prep student." Liam froze for a split second, barely noticeable, before flashing a charming grin. "Did I? Well, it is going to be freezing in Aspen. Function over fashion. Right, just toss it in." I placed the sweater in the suitcase, burying a prickle of unease under a layer of trust. It was just a sweater. People changed their minds about clothes all the time. Just as I zipped the suitcase shut, my phone buzzed on the nightstand. The screen lit up with the name Bella. "Hey," I answered, putting the phone on speaker as I handed Liam his charger. "What is up?" "Hey, Harper," Bella's voice chirped through the line, sounding breathless and a little too bright. "Listen, I just wanted to let you know. Mom, Dad, and I are heading out of town for a few days. Like, right now." I frowned, looking at Liam, who was busy checking his watch and avoiding eye contact. "Right now? Where are you going?" "Oh, just back to the countryside," Bella said vaguely. "Aunt Marge is sick again. Mom is worried, so we are all piling into the car to go support her." "Aunt Marge," I asked. "I thought she was doing better." "Do you want me to drive you guys? I can drop Liam at the airport and then take you." "The SUV is gassed up." No, Bella shouted, the volume peaking sharply before she lowered her voice. I mean, no, absolutely not. You are so busy with the firm. Mom said she does not want to bother you. Really, Harper, stay home. Relax. We have got it covered. Okay, I said slowly. Well, tell Mom I said I hope Marge feels better. Will do. Bye. The line went dead before I could say another word. I stood there holding the silent phone. Liam kissed my cheek, grabbed his suitcase, and rushed out the door with a promise to call me when he landed. The house fell silent, settling around me. It was a strange coincidence. My fiancé was flying to a luxury mountain resort for business, and my entire immediate family was rushing to the countryside for a family emergency, all within the exact same hour. I walked to the window and watched Liam's car disappear down the driveway. A tiny, nagging voice in the back of my head whispered that something was wrong, but I silenced it. I was Harper, the rational architect. I dealt in blueprints and concrete foundations, not paranoid delusions. Yet, as I looked at the empty driveway, the silence in my beautiful, expensive house felt less like peace and more like the quiet intake of breath before a scream. The silence in the house was not peaceful. It was heavy, pressing against my eardrums like deep water. I wandered down the hallway, a glass of red wine in my hand, stopping in front of the gallery wall I had curated with such precision. The photos stared back at me, frozen moments of a happiness that now felt performative. There was one from my college graduation. I was wearing my gown, holding my diploma tight, grinning with the exhaustion of someone who had worked 2 jobs to pay tuition. Next to me, Bella looked bored, holding a bouquet of roses my parents had bought for her because she felt left out of the celebration. That had always been the dynamic. Harper the rock, Bella the flower, Harper the provider, Bella the princess. My parents never said it outright, but the subtext was woven into every birthday card and every family dinner. You are so strong, Harper, my mother would say, usually right before asking me to loan Bella money for rent or bail her out of another manicured crisis. You do not need us the way she does. I had worn my independence like armor, not realizing it was actually a wall that kept me isolated while they huddled together on the other side. I remembered a barbecue we hosted last July. The memory surfaced with a sudden sharp clarity. Liam had been standing by the grill, a beer in one hand, watching Bella laugh at something stupid near the pool. She was wearing a white sundress that slipped off one shoulder. She has this fragile beauty, doesn't she? Liam had said to me, his voice low. Like if you hold her too tight, she might break. It makes a man want to, I don't know, protect her. I had laughed it off then, slapping his arm and joking that Bella was about as fragile as a rusted nail when she wanted something. But looking back, I remembered the glaze in his eyes. He wasn't looking at her like a brother-in-law. He was looking at her like a savior. The house felt too big. I needed to hear his voice. I pulled out my phone and dialed Liam on FaceTime. It rang and rang, echoing in the empty kitchen, until it clicked to voicemail. I tried my mother next. Surely, if they were dealing with a sick relative, someone would be awake. No answer. 2 minutes later, a text message from Mom popped up. Signal is terrible out here. Everyone is exhausted and sleeping. Do not worry about us. Love you. I frowned. Aunt Marge lived in a town that had perfect cell coverage. Why lie to stop my mind from spiraling? I decided to cook. I needed a distraction, something tactile. I remembered saving a complex risotto recipe on the iPad we kept in the kitchen. It was technically Liam's old tablet, but we used it for music and cooking. I woke the screen up, bypassing the passcode I knew by heart. I was searching for the recipe folder when a small banner notification slid down from the top of the screen. iCloud Photos 1 item uploaded just now. Liam had forgotten to sign out of his personal Apple ID. My finger hovered over the notification. I should have ignored it. I should have respected his privacy. But the knot in my stomach was pulling tight, a physical ache that demanded attention. I tapped the banner. The screen refreshed, populating the latest image in the Recents album. It was a photo taken in low light, intimate and warm. It showed two hands holding crystal wine glasses, clinking them together in a toast. The background was blurry, but I could make out the roaring fire of a stone fireplace and the edge of a fur rug, details that screamed high-end luxury resort, not a sick relative's bedside in the countryside. I zoomed in on the hand holding the glass opposite Liam's. It was a woman's hand, manicured with a soft pink polish. Around the wrist was a silver charm bracelet. My breath hitched in my throat, choking me. I knew that bracelet. I knew every single link of it because I had spent $300 on it last Tuesday for Bella's birthday. I had personally selected the charms, a tiny passport for her love of travel, and a heart because I loved her. My sister, my fiance. They were not in Aspen with investors. They were not at Aunt Marge's house. They were together, drinking expensive wine, likely on my dime, while I sat in the house I paid for, worrying about their safety. The realization did not hit me like a wave. It hit me like a car crash, shattering the windshield of my reality into a million jagged pieces. My fingers trembled so violently that I almost dropped the iPad on the marble countertop. I forced myself to take a breath, tapping the folder labeled Aspen Trip that had just finished sinking to the cloud. The screen filled with a grid of thumbnails, and with every image I opened, a fresh laceration opened up across my chest. There were no investors. There were no male colleagues named Mike or Dave. There was my father, wearing a brand new North Face parka I had never seen before, standing next to Liam. There was my mother, her face flushed with wine, laughing at something Bella was whispering. And there was Liam, my fiance, my partner, with his arm draped possessively over my sister's shoulders. They were posed in front of a massive stone fireplace that roared with flames, looking for all the world like the perfect family unit. I was the only piece missing from the puzzle, and looking at their smiles, it was obvious they did not miss me at all. I swiped to the next photo. It was an artistic shot of a dinner table laden with seafood towers and expensive bottles of vintage red. A receipt had been carelessly left near the edge of the frame. I pinched the screen to zoom in, my eyes straining to read the blurry text. The total at the bottom was $1,480. Next to the total, the payment method was listed Visa ending in 4589. I gasped, the sound sharp and ragged in the empty kitchen. That was my card. That was the supplementary card I had given Liam strictly for emergencies or wedding expenses. He was using my money to wine and dine my family while I sat here eating leftovers. But the anger did not truly set in until I clicked on a video file. The camera shook slightly, likely held by my father. The lens focused on my mother, who was raising a crystal flute of champagne. To Liam and Bella. My mother's voice rang out, clear and cruel. You two are the real match. You always were. Harper is just too rigid to understand what real happiness looks like. She is married to her job, but you two, you have passion. The camera panned to Liam. He wasn't defending me. He wasn't looking guilty. He was beaming, pulling Bella closer into his side. She giggled, resting her head on his chest. Thanks, Mom, Liam said, his voice dripping with a sickening gratitude. You guys are the best for understanding. Do not worry. After this trip, I am going to figure out a way to talk to Harper about the deed to the house. If we play our cards right, she might just sign half of it over as a wedding gift before we make any big changes. Just make sure you do it before she gets suspicious, Bella added, taking a sip of her drink. She is smart, but she trusts you too much. It is kind of pathetic. I paused the video. The silence that rushed back into the room was deafening. I felt like I had been hollowed out. My mother thought I was rigid. My sister thought I was pathetic. And the man I planned to marry was strategizing how to steal the equity of the home I had built with my own hands. They were not just betraying me emotionally, they were conspiring to rob me. I needed to be certain of where they were. I grabbed my own phone and opened the Find My Friends app. Bella, in her arrogance or stupidity, had forgotten to turn off her location sharing. The little blue dot pulsed steadily on the map. Silver Peak Lodge, Aspen. I stared at the dot for a long moment. My breathing slowed. The crushing weight of sadness began to lift, replaced by a cold, metallic clarity. I was an architect. I knew how to build things, but I also knew exactly where the load-bearing walls were, and I knew how to bring a structure down with a single, calculated strike. I walked to my office and retrieved an external hard drive. I connected it to the iPad and began the transfer. Every photo, every video, every timestamp. I took screenshots of the map location. I downloaded the metadata. I saved it all. When the progress bar hit 100%, I ejected the drive and held it in my hand. It felt heavy, like a weapon. I walked back to the center of the living room and looked around. 10 minutes ago, this place had been a sanctuary. Now, it was a crime scene, but I was not the victim anymore. I was the lead investigator, the judge, and the executioner. I did not cry. Tears were for people who still had hope. I had something better than hope. I had the deed to the house, and I had 3 days to burn their world to the ground. I sat down at the heavy oak desk in my study, the wood cool under my forearms. I unlocked the bottom drawer and pulled out the thick manila envelope containing the deed to the house. I ran my fingers over my name printed in bold, black ink. Just my name. No one else. It was the only leverage I needed. My mind went to Mark Vance. He was a shark in a suit, a real estate developer who had been trying to buy this plot of land from me for 2 years. He was ruthless, unpleasant, and completely transactional. He was exactly who I needed. I picked up my phone. It was 2 o'clock in the morning, but men like Vance never really slept. Harper, his voice rasped on the second ring, sounding more alert than anyone should be at that hour. "You know what time it is. Do you still want to buy the house with a cash offer?" I asked, my voice steel. "I need to sell. I need it done in 3 days." There was a pause on the other end, a silence where I could practically hear him doing the mental math. 3 days, Vance asked, skeptical. "Is the place on fire?" "No," I replied, "but my life is." "Here are the terms. 100% cash payment. No inspections that take longer than an hour. We sign the papers on Thursday morning, and I hand you the keys immediately. Do we have a deal if the title is clean? I will have the paperwork drawn up by sunrise," Vance said, the greed audible in his tone. "I will bring the check." "Done," I said, and hung up. The sun had barely crested the horizon when the first moving truck arrived. I had hired a premium service for my belongings. I pointed them to the master bedroom, my office, and the kitchen. "Everything that belongs to me goes to the layout I sent you for the penthouse at the Meridian." I instructed the foreman. "Handle it with care. For Liam's things, I had made a different arrangement." I hired a couple of guys with a beat-up van from an online ad. I instructed them to toss his designer suits, his golf clubs, and his precious vinyl collection into cardboard boxes. I did not bother with bubble wrap. "Where is this going?" Lady one of the movers asked, chewing on a toothpick. "You store it on Industrial Way," I said, handing him a cash envelope. "Unit 4B. It is the one with the leaky roof, but it was the cheapest." I paid for exactly 1 month. After that, it is his problem. As the rooms emptied, I realized the house still looked too nice. I had paid for the imported crystal chandeliers. I had paid for the velvet drapes from Italy. I had paid for the smart home thermostat system. I called a contractor friend who owed me a favor. "Bring a ladder and a toolkit." I told him, I want everything detached, the lights, the curtains, the bathroom mirrors. If I bought it, it leaves with me. By noon, the house was being stripped to its bones. While the drill whirred overhead, removing the dining room fixture, I pulled out my phone for the final step of Phase 1. I dialed the bank's fraud department. I need to report a compromised card, I told the agent, my voice feigning panic. The supplementary card ending in 4589. I believe it is being used fraudulently in Aspen. Please freeze it immediately. No, do not authorize any further charges. It is done. Ma'am, the agent confirmed. The card is dead. Thank you, I said. I hung up and went into my contacts. I selected Mom, Dad, Bella, and Liam, one by one. I hit block caller. I did not want to hear their excuses. I did not want to hear their panic when the credit card was declined at the ski lodge. I left my email address active as the only open channel. If they wanted to reach me, they would have to write, and that meant I would have a paper trail of their lies. I looked around the living room. It was echoing and barren, wires hanging from the ceiling where the chandelier used to be. It looked like a skeleton. It was perfect. I was not just moving out, I was erasing myself from their lives. And by the time they realized I was gone, I would be a ghost with a very large bank account. I stood in the foyer, watching the movers hoist my grand piano onto a dolly. The screech of the wheels against the hardwood floor was music to my ears, a symphony of departure. My phone buzzed in my hand, displaying a Colorado area code I did not recognize. I knew immediately who it was, since I had nuked his credit access. Liam would be desperate. I answered, putting on my best worried fiancé voice. Hello, Harper babe. Thank God you picked up. Liam's voice came through, thick with a sugary charm that made my stomach turn. My phone is dead, so I am calling from the hotel front desk. Listen, something weird is happening with the credit card. The chip must be malfunctioning or something. It keeps getting declined. Oh no, I said, walking over to a pile of Liam's old college hoodies and gym clothes that I had segregated from the rest. That is terrible. Are you okay? Yeah. Yeah. It is just embarrassing. He laughed nervously. I am with the investors right now, and I need to cover a deposit for a private dining room. Could you transfer, $5,000 to my personal checking account just until I get this sorted out? You know I will pay you back the second I get home. $5,000. He wanted $5,000 of my hard-earned money to buy lobster and champagne for my traitorous sister and parents. I would love to, Liam, but I got an email from the bank this morning. I lied, my voice steady and sweet. They are doing scheduled system maintenance for the next 24 hours. Online transfers are totally down. I cannot move a cent. There was a heavy pause on the line. In the background, I heard a familiar, high-pitched giggle. It was Bella. Then I heard my father's booming voice, slightly slurred. Come on, son, the oysters are getting warm. Just put it on the room tab for now, I said, cutting off Liam's stammering. I will call the bank first thing tomorrow and sort it out. Do not worry about money. Just focus on your meeting. You are a lifesaver. Harper, Liam said, the relief palpable. I love you. Seriously. I know. I said. I ended the call. A cold smirk touched my lips as I looked down at the pile of his clothes. The mover looked at me for instruction. I grabbed a clipboard and signed the authorization form with a flourish. What about these, ma'am? The mover asked, gesturing to Liam's pile. Box them up for storage. No. I said, these are trash. Take them to the dump. I do not want to see them again. An hour later, a sleek black sedan pulled into the driveway. Mark Vance stepped out, flanked by a rigid-looking man in a gray suit who carried a briefcase. Vance looked around the emptying house, his eyes calculating the square footage and the resale value. He walked up the steps, stepping over a roll of bubble wrap. You do not waste time. Harper, I respect that. Time is money. Mark, I replied. His lawyer opened the briefcase on the kitchen island, the only surface not yet covered in dust. Inside were stacks of paperwork and a cashier's check for the deposit. Vance took a pen, but before he signed, he looked at me with genuine curiosity. "I have to ask," Vance said, tapping the pen against the granite. "Why the fire sale? You spent years working on this place. It is a masterpiece. Why sell it for cash in 3 days? Are you in trouble?" I looked at the walls where my diplomas used to hang, now just pale rectangles on the paint. The house is compromised. "Mark, it has been infested." Vance frowned, looking at the floorboards. "Termites, mold, parasites," I said flatly. "The kind that drain you dry while smiling to your face." "I needed to cut the infection out before it killed me." Vance stared at me for a second, then shrugged and signed the papers. "Fair enough. The money will be in your account within 2 hours." Before the final items were loaded, I stopped by the main hallway. The only thing I had left on the wall was a massive 4 by 5 foot family portrait we had taken last Thanksgiving. It showed me, Liam, Bella, and my parents, all dressed in matching navy blue, smiling like the perfect American dream. I picked up a can of red spray paint I had used for marking utility lines during the renovation. I shook it, the metal ball rattling inside like a bullet. With broad, violent strokes, I sprayed a thick red X over Liam's face, then Bella's, then my parents'. The red paint dripped down the canvas like fresh blood. I walked out the front door, leaving the defaced portrait hanging there as a welcome gift for the new owner or perhaps a warning. Mrs. Gable, my nosy neighbor, was peering over the hedge, her eyes wide at the sight of the moving trucks. "Harper," she called out. "Is everything all right? Are you moving?" I flashed her a dazzling, manic smile. "Oh, no. Mrs. Gable. Just a massive renovation. Getting everything ready for when Liam comes back. We are going to start fresh." I turned back to the house. It was a military operation. Precise and lethal. I felt no regret. Only the cold, hard satisfaction of a general who had just ordered a necessary airstrike. By the 3rd day, the Victorian villa was no longer a home. It was a carcass picked clean. The grand rooms where I had envisioned hosting Christmas parties and raising children were now just cavernous boxes of plaster and wood. The removal of the furniture had changed the acoustics entirely. As I walked through the hallway for the final time, the sharp click-clack of my stilettos echoed off the walls like the strike of a judge's gavel, delivering a final, irrevocable verdict. I stopped in the kitchen area. The massive stainless steel refrigerator was gone, hauled away an hour ago. On the floor, fluttering in the draft from the open back door, was a neon yellow sticky note. I bent down and picked it up. It was a note Liam had left me 2 weeks ago. "Love you, babe. Leftovers in the fridge." I stared at the looping script of his handwriting. It felt like looking at a relic from a civilization that had died out centuries ago. "Love you." I whispered to the empty room, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. What a joke. I crushed the paper into a tight yellow ball and flicked it into the heavy-duty trash bag that the cleaners were taking out. That was the last piece of him allowed in this space. Half an hour later, Mark Vance's lawyer arrived, a punctual man with the personality of a spreadsheet. We stood at the granite island, the only fixture too heavy to remove easily. He laid out the transfer documents. "Ms. Sullivan, if you could just sign here, here, and initial at the bottom of page 4, the lawyer instructed, offering me a gold pen. My hand did not shake. I signed my name with a flourish, the ink flowing smoothly. Harper Sullivan. With the final stroke of the pen, I severed my tie to the property, to the memories, and to the future I had foolishly built around a liar. "The funds have been wired," the lawyer said, tapping his tablet. "You should see the confirmation." I checked my phone. A notification from my private account at a completely different bank, one that Liam did not even know existed, flashed on the screen. The number was staggering. It was the full market value, paid in cash, sitting safe and untouchable. "Pleasure doing business," I said, handing the pen back. We will need the keys, he reminded me. Actually, I have a locksmith finishing up at the front gate right now. I replied, new owner, new locks. I figured Mr. Vance would appreciate the security upgrade. I walked to the front door where the locksmith was packing his tools. He handed me a set of shiny, silver keys. I immediately turned and dropped them into the palm of Vance's assistant, who was waiting by his car. It is all yours, I told him. The house is empty. Do whatever you want with it. I had one last task. I pulled a white envelope from my purse. Inside was a single key, the key to Unit 4B at the dilapidated storage facility on the edge of town. Along with it was a single sheet of paper. It was not a long, tear-stained letter. It was a printout of the cancellation of our wedding venue, with a handwritten note at the bottom. We are done. Your stuff is in storage. You pay the rent starting next month. I taped the envelope to the inside of the glass storm door, right at eye level. When they arrived, it would be the first thing they saw. I sat in the driver's seat of my car and pulled out my phone. I opened my contacts list. Liam, Bella, Mom, Dad. I went through each profile on Instagram, Facebook, and WhatsApp. Block, 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 block. I severed the digital tethers one by one, watching their smiling profile pictures vanish into the void. Before I put the car in drive, I stepped out one last time and walked over to the thick rhododendron bush facing the driveway. I nestled a small, battery-operated security camera deep into the foliage, angling the lens perfectly toward the front porch. I checked the live feed on my phone. The picture was crisp. I would have a front-row seat to their destruction. I got back into the car and started the engine. I did not look in the rearview mirror as I pulled out of the driveway. There was nothing behind me worth seeing. Ahead of me lay the city skyline and my new penthouse at the Meridian, a place of glass and steel where the air was clean and the truth was the only currency that mattered. I was homeless in the traditional sense, but for the first time in my life, I was completely, intoxicatingly free. 2 days later, I was sitting on the balcony of my new penthouse on the 42nd floor, the city lights shimmering below me like scattered diamonds. In my hand was a glass of vintage Pinot Noir, and on the table in front of me, my iPad was propped up, streaming a live feed from the hidden camera I had planted in the rhododendron bush. The motion sensor had pinged moments ago. A large black rental SUV pulled up to the curb of my former residence. Even through the grainy 4K video feed, I could see they were glowing with the golden, arrogant tan of people who had spent the last 48 hours spending someone else's money. They looked relaxed, happy, and utterly oblivious to the fact that they were standing on the precipice of ruin. The car doors opened and the audio feed crackled to life. The microphone on the camera was sensitive, picking up their voices clearly in the quiet evening air. That was the best trip we have had in years, my father said, stepping out of the driver's side and stretching his back. We really needed that? Totally, Liam replied. Hopping out of the passenger seat, he looked energized. And listen, tonight is the night. I am going to sit Harper down. I have been thinking about her portfolio. If I can get her to liquidate those tech stocks she has been hoarding, that is easily $50,000 we can funnel into the startup. I will tell her it is for our future children or something. She will do it. My mother chimed in, opening the back door. She always does what you say if you look sad enough. Just give her those puppy dog eyes. I took a slow sip of wine, the liquid cool and smooth against my throat. They were already carving up the rest of my assets before they had even unpacked. Then, Bella stepped out. My grip tightened on the stem of my glass. She was wearing my oversized Gucci sunglasses, the ones I had searched for everywhere before they left. She had stolen them. She pushed them up onto her head, looking at the house with a smirk. I called dibs on the master bath tonight, Bella announced, her voice shrill. I am not going back to that guest room mattress. Once Liam kicks Harper to the curb, we are redecorating everything in beige. This Victorian stuff is so depressing. Liam laughed, pointing the garage door remote at the gate. He pressed the button. Nothing happened. He pressed it again, harder this time. The heavy iron gate remained stubbornly closed. "What the?" Liam muttered, frowning. He held the remote up, shaking it. Battery must be dead. Cheap rental crap. "Just open the side gate." "Liam," my father grunted, dragging a heavy suitcase out of the trunk. "I need to use the bathroom." The group hauled their luggage up the driveway to the pedestrian gate. The house beyond was pitch black. No porch lights, no warm glow from the living room, no movement in the windows. It looked like a tomb. Liam stepped up to the keypad lock on the gate. He punched in the code 1204. My birthday. The lock flashed red. Beep, beep, beep. "Did you type it wrong?" Bella asked, blowing a bubble with her gum. "No, I typed it right," Liam snapped. "Maybe the system is offline." He pulled out his keychain. Selecting the brass key that had hung on his ring for 3 years, he jammed it into the keyhole. It stopped halfway. It won't go in," Liam said, his voice rising in panic. He jiggled it violently, the metal scraping loudly against the new cylinder. "The key does not fit. It is like the whole lock is different." My mother let out a dramatic sigh, dropping her handbag onto the pavement. "Oh, for God's sake! Harper, open this damn door. What is wrong with that girl now? She probably changed the codes just to be difficult because we did not invite her. She is so dramatic," Bella sneered, stepping forward and kicking the metal gate with her sneaker. Clang. "Hey, Harper, quit playing games. She is probably inside watching us, just doing this for attention." Pathetic. I swirled the wine in my glass, watching the little liquid vortex spin. Bella was right about one thing. I was watching, but she was wrong about everything else. "Try calling her again," my father demanded. "I tried," Liam yelled, losing his composure. "It goes straight to voicemail. Why is the house so dark? Why doesn't my key work?" Panic was starting to set in. The easy confidence of their arrival was evaporating, replaced by the confusion of animals who had returned to their den only to find the entrance sealed with concrete. I watched Liam rattle the gate again, his face twisted in frustration, completely unaware that the house behind that gate no longer belonged to the woman he planned to rob. It belonged to a stranger, and I was miles away, safe, rich, and enjoying the show. The screen of my iPad flickered with bursts of red and blue light. It was the moment I had been waiting for. I had called the local precinct 3 hours ago, reporting a group of suspicious individuals attempting to break into the property at the address I no longer owned. I watched with a glass of wine in hand as the patrol car rolled up to the curb, its siren chirping once to demand attention. 2 officers stepped out, hands resting cautiously on their belts. My family and Liam froze like deer in headlights. "Step away from the gate." The taller officer commanded, his voice booming through the camera's microphone. "Let's see some identification. We had a report of attempted trespassing." Liam immediately puffed out his chest, putting on his best law-abiding citizen face. He walked toward the officer, hands raised non-threateningly. "Officer." "Thank God you are here," Liam said, flashing a charming but nervous smile. "This is a huge misunderstanding. I live here. My fiance, Harper Sullivan, owns this house. We just got back from a trip and, well, our keys aren't working. The electronic lock is glitching." The officer did not smile back. He took Liam's driver's license and walked back to the cruiser to run a check on the address. I zoomed in on the video feed. My mother was fanning herself with a magazine, looking indignant. Bella was crossing her arms, tapping her foot impatiently. A minute later, the officer returned, his expression grim. "Sir," the officer said, handing the license back, "you do not live here, and neither does a Ms. Sullivan. According to the county registrar, this property was sold and the title was transferred 48 hours ago." What Liam laughed. A sound that cracked in the middle. That is impossible. Harper would never sell without telling me. She loves this house. Check again. The current owner is listed as Vance Investment Group. The officer stated flatly, "You are trespassing on private corporate property. You need to move your vehicle and your belongings immediately, or we will have to cite you." The color drained from Liam's face so fast he looked like a corpse. My father's jaw dropped, his mouth hanging open in a silent scream of confusion. "Vance," my mother screeched. "Who is Vance? Harper owns this house. She paid for every brick." Just then, a heavy-duty pickup truck with the logo, Vance Construction, pulled up behind the police cruiser. The project manager, a burly man I had briefed personally, jumped out. He walked past the confused police officers and stopped in front of Liam. He didn't look angry. He looked bored. "You the boyfriend?" the manager asked, chewing on a toothpick. "Fiance," Liam corrected automatically, though his voice was trembling. "Right. Former owner left this for you. Said it was urgent." The manager pulled a thick white envelope from his back pocket and shoved it into Liam's chest. Liam's hands shook violently as he tore the paper open. A glossy photograph fluttered to the ground, the screenshot I had taken of the four of them toasting in front of the fireplace in Aspen. Then, a single silver key fell out with a metallic clink. Liam held up the handwritten note, his eyes scanning the words I had penned with such pleasure. He read it aloud, his voice barely a whisper. "Congratulations to the happy family. I sold the house to get the cash I need to find a family that actually loves me. Your stuff is in storage unit 4B. You pay the rent starting next month." For a second, there was total silence. Then, chaos erupted. "She sold it!" Bella screamed, the sound distorting the audio on my iPad. "She sold the house. Is she crazy? That is our money. She stole our inheritance. That selfish witch." My mother let out a theatrical wail and collapsed onto the manicured lawn, clutching her chest. My retirement. She promised we could move into the guest wing. How could she do this to her own mother? It was not grief. It was the panic of a parasite realizing the host had died. Liam stared at the note, then looked at the photo of them in Aspen. He whipped his head around to look at Bella. "You posted it," Liam roared, pointing a finger in Bella's face. "I told you not to post anything until we got back." "She saw it. She saw everything because of your stupid Instagram story." "Don't yell at me," Bella shrieked back, shoving him. "You were the one who used her credit card. You said she was too stupid to notice both of you shut up." My father yelled, kicking a suitcase. "Where are we going to sleep? We have no money." "The cards are maxed out." They stood there on the sidewalk, arguing under the cold blue glare of the police lights, blaming each other for the disaster they had created. I took another sip of wine, savoring the bouquet. It was a beautiful scene, far more entertaining than any movie I could have rented. The house was gone, the money was safe, and the rats were finally turning on each other, as if the universe was directing this scene personally. The sky broke open. It wasn't a gentle drizzle. It was a torrential summer downpour that soaked the streets in seconds. On my iPad screen, I watched the perfect family disintegrate. Their designer clothes, bought with money they didn't really have, were clinging to their bodies. My mother's blowout hairstyle flattened instantly against her skull, and Bella's mascara began to run, turning her into a weeping raccoon. My phone on the table lit up. It was Liam, calling from the unknown number again. I let it ring, sipping my wine as I watched him on the screen, frantically pressing the phone to his ear with one hand while trying to shield his face from the rain with the other. He looked like a drowned rat. "Pick up. Pick up." I could imagine him begging, though the audio was drowned out by the sound of the rain hitting the camera microphone. When the call went to voicemail, the explosion happened. My father, a man who had spent his entire life pretending to be the patriarch while letting me pay the bills, finally snapped. He turned on Liam, his face purple with rage. "You said you had her under control. My father roared, his voice cutting through the storm. He swung his hand and connected hard with Liam's cheek. Smack! Liam stumbled back, clutching his face. I did. I don't know what happened. She must have found out. Where are we supposed to go? My father screamed, shoving Liam again. You told us to sell the condo. You said we would live here. We are homeless. You idiot Bella, shivering in her thin sundress, stomped her foot in a puddle, splashing mud onto her white sneakers. She turned to my mother, her voice cracking. This is your fault. You told him to book the trip. You said Harper was too busy working to notice. Now look at us, don't you dare blame me, my mother yelled back, wiping water from her eyes. I just wanted a nice vacation. Liam was the one who said he could talk her out of the house deed. It was a beautiful, chaotic symphony of blame. The alliance formed by greed had shattered the moment the money ran dry. I watched as they tried to flag down a taxi. A sleek sedan pulled over, but after a heated exchange likely about payment, the driver sped off. Liam had tried to use his card, the one I had frozen. My parents tried theirs, but I knew for a fact they had maxed out their limits on spa treatments and room service in Aspen. Finally, a beat-up yellow cab with a dented bumper pulled up. They had no choice. I watched them squeeze into the back seat, 4 grown adults piling on top of each other with wet luggage on their laps. The car sagged under the weight as it drove away toward the industrial district. I didn't need a camera to know what happened next. I knew exactly where they were going. The storage facility on the outskirts of town was a place where dreams went to die. It smelled of mildew, gasoline, and desperation. I imagined the taxi driver dumping them at the gate because their card declined again, forcing them to scrape together their last bit of cash. They would have to drag their Rimowa suitcases through the mud to Unit 4B. When Liam rolled up the rusted metal door, the smell of damp concrete and old dust would hit them first. Inside, there was no climate control, no velvet ropes, and certainly no champagne. There were just black plastic trash bags. I had instructed the movers to be efficient. Liam's $3,000 Italian suits were stuffed into bags meant for yard waste. His collection of vintage vinyl records was stacked haphazardly in a corner, likely warped by the heat and humidity. This is it. I could hear Bella's voice echoing in the hollow metal box. This is where we live. Liam would be frantically tearing open a bag, pulling out a wrinkled, wet blazer. My Armani? She ruined it. She treated it like garbage. It is garbage, my father would mutter, sitting on a plastic tote bin because there were no chairs. Just like your promises. The contrast was poetic. 48 hours ago. They were clinking glasses in a 5-star lodge, laughing at my expense. Now, they were huddled in a 10-by-10 steel box, surrounded by trash bags, wet, broke, and hating each other. The bond that held them together. My money was gone, and without it, they were nothing but strangers trapped in a storm. I closed the iPad cover, cutting off the feed of the empty driveway. The show was over. The actors had been dismissed. I finished my wine and stood up, walking toward the bedroom of my penthouse. The sheets were Egyptian cotton. The air was dry and cool, and for the first time in 4 years, I wasn't sharing my bed with a liar. 3 weeks later, the air inside the grand atrium of the Skylark building smelled of expensive perfume and fresh lilies. This was my night. As the lead architect, I was the guest of honor at the opening gala of the city's newest skyscraper. I wore a backless emerald gown that cost more than the car Liam used to drive. And for the first time in years, I did not feel the weight of carrying dead weight on my shoulders. I felt weightless. I was sipping champagne near the orchestra when I saw a commotion near the velvet ropes at the entrance. Security was trying to hold someone back, but the man pushed through, stumbling into the main hall. It was Liam. He looked like a shadow of the man who had packed for Aspen. His suit was wrinkled, likely the same one he had pulled out of a trash bag in the storage unit. His face was gaunt, unshaven, and his eyes were darting around the room with the desperation of a drowning animal. When he locked eyes with me, he rushed forward, ignoring the gasps of the socialites around us. "Harper," he choked out, reaching for my hand, but stopping short when I took a sharp step back. "Harper. Please, I have been trying to reach you for weeks. You have to listen to me." I looked at him, not with anger, but with a cold, detached pity. "Security is on their way. Liam, you have 30 seconds. "It wasn't my idea," Liam pleaded, his voice cracking loud enough for the nearby investors to hear. "I was manipulated." "Okay. Your parents. Bella, they got in my head. They told me you were controlling. They told me I needed to secure my future. I only wanted to make them happy so we could all be a family. Please, just give me a chance to explain. I love you." The room had gone quiet. All eyes were on us. A younger version of me would have been humiliated. The new Harper saw an opportunity. "You love me?" I asked, my voice calm and projecting clearly across the marble floor. "Yes, more than anything," Liam cried, tears welling in his eyes. I pulled my phone from my clutch. I tapped the screen and held it up. The audio from the call he made to me while he was in Aspen blasted through the silence. "Could you transfer, $5,000 to my personal checking account, just until I get this sorted out?" Then, the background noise I had enhanced cut through. Bella's giggle, my father yelling about oysters, and Liam's voice again, dripping with deceit. "You are a lifesaver. Harper, I love you." I hit stop. The silence in the room was absolute. "You do not love me, Liam," I said, my voice steady as steel. "You love my wallet. You love my house. And now that both of those things are gone, you are just a man with a storage unit key and a lot of regrets." At the glass doors of the entrance, 3 more figures appeared. My parents and Bella were pressing their faces against the glass, arguing with the head of security. They looked disheveled and frantic. My mother was shouting something about blood being thicker than water. Bella was crying, pointing at me. I signaled the head of security. He looked at me for instruction. I gave him a curt nod to keep them out. I turned back to Liam, who was shaking, his face pale. "Family are the people who protect you," I declared, loud enough for the press photographers to hear. "Family are the people who build you up. They are not the parasites who drain you dry and laugh about it behind your back. You and them. You are all fired from my life." 2 security guards stepped up and grabbed Liam by the elbows. He didn't fight them. He just slumped, defeated, as they dragged him toward the exit to join the rest of the outcasts on the sidewalk. I watched them through the thick, soundproof glass. They were screaming at each other again, miserable and wet in the evening drizzle, looking into the warm, golden world of success that they would never touch again. I turned my back on them and walked out the side exit to the valet stand. My car was waiting. As I merged onto the highway, heading toward my penthouse, my phone chimed with a notification. It was a deposit alert from my investment account. The interest from the house sale had just hit. It was $12,400, a passive income made in a single month, earning more than Liam made in 3. I smiled, rolling down the window to let the night air rush in. I took a sip from the water bottle in the console, but it tasted better than the finest wine. It tasted like freedom. It tasted like absolute victory. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I would love to know where you are tuning in from. So please drop a comment below and let's chat about what you would have done in Harper's shoes. If you enjoyed this revenge, please subscribe to the Lily Revenge Stories channel, like this video, and smash that hype button so more people can hear how a smart woman handles toxic family drama.